Hi, Peter Charles here, Folk for Life Fly Fishing. And have you ever wanted to make your own sink tips? Especially the type that have a floater back end and a sink tip front end, and you make the floater sections different sizes. Some people call them MOW tips or Skagit tips or however you want to describe them. But you can make your own. And I'm going to show you how to make this joint. And you can see here it is a simple overlap joint. And it's surprising how well that holds. So we're going to do one today. I will say one thing. This is going to be the trickiest welding job you'll ever have to do because we've got two problems. This bit here, the sink tip portion, which is T10 in this case, it has a mono core. You can see the mono core there. And the problem with the mono core is its melting point isn't that far removed from the melting point of the plastic that's on the sink tip material. So you get into problems with melting the core and weakening it. So you have to be careful with that. And the other thing is, because this is a black material or very dark brown, and you've got tungsten embedded in it, it goes from not welded enough to overwelded like that. So you've got to be really careful that you don't apply too much heat to this thing, or you just simply cook it and it's done. So we're going to have a try at doing one of these, and I haven't done one in years, so I could probably screw it up. But you know, sometimes when you screw things up on camera, it's actually good. You get to show people what it shouldn't look like, which can be just as valuable as what it should look like. So if we're not successful with this one, there's evidence I can actually do them. And sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get the timing down of when that thing is just welded just enough and not too much. So I've got a bit of material here. I've got my floating material, and I've got my sink tip material. This is T10. So you have that problem where it is kind of sticky and doesn't want to move. What you can do is just wet the two materials, slide the floater in all the way so it sticks out the other end, and then push the sink tip material in. And once you've wetted it, you know, it will slide in. It may not slide in at first when you are doing this dry, but it will slide in when it's wet. And just be patient, just push it. Now, you could avoid this problem by using larger heat shrink, larger diameter heat shrink. I try to avoid that because I run into problems with overcooking it. So by keeping my heat shrink size to an absolute minimum, I can control things a little bit better. So there we go. So we'll start with the tag end as usual. And we'll snag things down. Make sure everything's lined up. You want to make sure it's in a straight line, as you can see there. Now we start with the tag end and try to approach, sort of sneak up on it. There we go, it's already starting. It's quick, you can see that. Here we go. Now, when I get to this end, I direct my heat to the back side. If you noticed, I'll turn this off. And you notice when I applied the heat, I applied it from this side. So I hit the floater material to get it to weld into the, and you can see how it's welded into the sink tip material, flowed right into it. If I did it from this side where I put the heat directly on the sink tip material, it would cook that end piece right there, right where it joins, right where my thumb and finger are. It would cook that, melt the core, and you'd be done. It would be a ruined tip. But by applying the heat to the plastic side, the floater side, then the floater is absorbing the heat, not the sinker, and it hangs together. So let's get this heat shrink off and we see if it's strong enough. See if I've melted the core of the sink tip, or is it still hanging together. Okay, this one's going to be a fussy one. Sometimes I find when I'm doing these, because I don't apply much heat to this particular joint, my heat shrink doesn't want to come off so easily. The more heat you apply to the heat shrink, the easier it is to remove. There we go. Okay, there's our joint. And you see I flowed that in nicely. And the thing to look out for, you can see, if you look carefully there, you can see that the floater does not, the sinker does not have any sort of dents or depressions in it. That's always a sign that you've had a problem when you've made that joint between the floater and the sinker material right at the end. In this case, it's flowed together beautifully, and I have no telltale dents or sagging in that spot, and it's good. It's solid. That'll hold a fish. So that's how you weld sinker material to a floater. Just go at it slowly, sort of sneak the heat up, watch carefully. As soon as you see that sink tip material start to flow, move the heat onto the next section. Don't keep going and applying heat to the same thing, because you'll overcook it. Like I said, you've got a mono core, and you can easily cook your way through the mono core and ruin it. And especially be careful of that joint right there, because that joint, if you don't get a good flow, and this one is not good, you can see, I'll just peel that up. This is the old one. Let's see if I can show that on camera properly. You can see how I just was able to grab it with my fingernail and peel it up. And that's because it wasn't melted properly, it wasn't welded properly. I was being super cautious trying to, that's why this is scrap. I was being super cautious trying to avoid heating that too much, and I didn't heat it enough. Whereas in this one, you've got a beautiful flow right in, and there's your sticking point. That joint right there between the floater and the sinker is where this will either fail or be successful. So keep that all in mind if you want to build your own sink tips. Cheers.
Fish. Good one.